chat series where we discuss the anatomy of a transaction. Today, we're going to be putting the spotlight on India, and we're very, very happy to welcome today with us Tarun Bhatia, who is the NAR president-elect in India. And Mr. Bhatia will be discussing the anatomy of a real estate transaction in India, and he's going to talk a little bit about the economy in India, the real estate market in India, and tell us also a little bit about his plans as the president-elect for NAR India. I'd also like to thank, first off, HGAR for helping us to get connected with Tarun. Thanks very much, AJ. AJ is a member of our Global Business Council. I also want to welcome Richard Haggerty, our CEO, Ann Garty, our COO, and Gary Connolly, who is responsible for bringing us our technology today that's connecting us all. And also my co-chair, Emmy Kakacha, who has been involved with the Global Business Council for the last couple of years, and she's also one of our global ambassadors. So I'd like to start off by welcoming Tarun to our global chat, and also if you can tell us a little bit about your background and a little bit about your business and your involvement with the NAR.
Thank you, Tony, and thank you, Hudson, for having me over here today. My name is Tarun Bhatia. I'm a realtor based out of Delhi NCR, which is the capital of India. My firm, I'm a partner in a firm called Shalom Agencies, which has been around for the last 40 years. I've been a realtor since the last 28 years, sorry. Our operations have been in and around Delhi NCR because that is where all the private developers started developing in the late 80s, and somehow we could join their journey in developing this area. We basically look after most verticals, whether it is residential or commercial or industrial, warehousing, logistics, hospitality. We are a boutique real estate company in the sense that we really don't have hundreds of employees. We are about 20 of us who manage the operations here. NAR India is a concept. So before I come to NAR India, I am a postgraduate in finance in terms of education. I'm a chartered financial analyst, but twist of fate made me a realtor. That's a long story. I'll not cover that here. So I joined NAR India about 7 years back when I realized that it's time to give back to the industry, because India is a very fragmented. This India realtor industry is a very fragmented one. There is hardly any unity. There were hardly any associations looking after the interest of the realtors. And although NAR India was founded in 2008 with the help of NAR US. So NAR US helped us form NAR India. There were a group of 7-8 people who formed it. I joined this association in about 2012. Today, we are close to 50,000 plus members in around 35 cities in the country, in 16 states in India. So the core focus of NAR India is to elevate the standards of practice of the real estate brokerage business, because as I mentioned, it is pretty fragmented. Secondly, the kind of support we expect from the government was not forthcoming. So this was formed to represent to the government that they should look after our interest, and also to enhance the standard of brokerage and to elevate the standard of our members, because there were hardly any courses and training programs in India, and technology was not being used. You'll be surprised, till today there is no serious MLS system in India. Although the real estate sector is so large, there is no MLS system in India. Some private players have tried their hand, but not very successfully. So at NAR India, we are trying to do that. There are no proper courses for the real estate brokerage industry. There are courses for the real estate industry in terms of construction, engineering, and maybe marketing at the developer level. But at the brokerage level, there are not very many courses. So NAR India has now tied up with RICS, which is a global body for real estate educational courses for its members. Apart from that, we have started our own institute called IIRE, which is Indian Institute of Real Estate, to make courses for real estate brokers. Also, we are now signing up MOUs with a lot of associations across the world. We have signed with Singapore. We have signed with Raleigh in North Carolina. We have signed with Main Street in Illinois, and obviously with NAR US. And we, try and exchange best practices. Actually, it's a one-way street at the moment. We are trying to take best practices from these associations. Uh, the Indian government, there was no licensing authority in India till as late as 2016. So in 2016, the Real Estate Regulatory Act came into being, and very proudly, I mean, we share that we were part of that of making of that act. So the government of India interacted with us, took our inputs, and now there's a panel which oversees that act. So we are part of that panel, and we represent our members. We try and uh, you know. Help our members understand the act, and also wherever the act, because the act is a new one, there are a lot of changes required. So we try and represent our interest to the government. Apart from that, as I mentioned, we are working on MLS. It's in the beta mode. Hopefully, we'll be launching it in the next 3 or 4 months. This pandemic has put us back because we were under a constant lockdown since March 25th, which has started opening partially. Uh, we released our real estate research report the first time in India. I'll share a link later in the chat. So that's about NAR India. Although I was supposed to take over in September, we also have an annual convention where the new president takes over from the outgoing one. But because of the pandemic, we are unable to do our convention. Uh, the NAR US is going for a virtual one. We are still thinking whether we should do a virtual or should we do a hybrid, or we should just wait for the situation to improve where people are comfortable meeting each other. So our convention has been postponed to March 2021. Hopefully, then I'll be taking over. And basically, once a president-elect takes over, it is just a continuation of what what the previous president has started. And plus, you can always include a couple of things from your end. So our first focus is to get a MLS as soon as possible, to get more courses for our realtor members, and a greater interaction with the government, so that our members, there are certain harsh provisions in the new act. So we're just trying to soften them for our members. Secondly, in India, in 28 states, if you have to operate, so you have to take licenses for all of them separately. Like for instance, Delhi NCR, there are 4 states. We work in 4 states. There is Haryana, Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh, and Delhi. So I have to take uh, uh, license for all the 4 state governments separately. So we are trying for one nation, one license from the NAR India platform, and there are certain tax issues which we are trying to resolve. So that's a brief about myself and about NAR India. Uh, Today, I would like to talk about the Indian real estate market and the real estate transaction process. So we'll cover a brief about India, why one should invest in India, the real estate transaction process, the real estate regulatory authority, which is the licensing authority. Uh, I've already covered NAR India briefly, and how foreigners and NRIs can invest in India. Before I come to that, Tony, can I request you to play the video about India, a brief video about India?
Yes, and for those of you who are not familiar with our Global Business Council, our mission is to provide our members with the tools and resources to connect globally with real estate professionals throughout the world. That's the purpose of this global chat, and we're going to be doing that as we continue this discussion. But first, let's look at the brief video that Tarun has provided to us. That'll tell us a little bit more about the market in India. thanks. That was a fantastic video. And while we proceed with the global chat, if everyone can place yourselves on mute, that would be great so we can eliminate background noise. We will leave some time toward the end for question and answers. Tarun, if you could talk to us a little bit about the economy in India. Why are people investing there? Why should they invest in India?
Thanks for playing the video, Tony. See, India is in South Asia, is the second most populous country and the most populous democracy in the world. Our population was only 361 million in 19. So we were 361 million in 1951, but today we are 1.33 billion. This was in 2018. The next census is 2021. So maybe by then it will be, the population will increase further. So our economy is still characterized as a developing market economy. It is the world's fifth largest economy by nominal GDP and the third largest by purchasing power parity. Since the start of the 21st century, our annual general GDP growth has been 6 to 7%. And in fact, from 2014 to 2018, India was the world's largest growing major economy, surpassing China. Our estimated GDP numbers are $3.2 trillion in 2020 in nominal terms and $11.321 trillion in terms of PPP. The why one should invest in India. First, we are one of the world's fastest growing economies. We have the largest youth population in the world. And India is the largest supplier of university graduates in the world. Our Indian infrastructure story is just getting on. So investments are planned across all the key government initiatives, whether it's highways, railways, ports, airports, industrial corridors, smart cities. $1.5 trillion investments have been planned. We are a huge domestic market, and rising affluence is the biggest driver of increasing consumption in India. And India's consumer story will be led by its 129 million urban mass consumers. May I request everyone to please put themselves on mute? Thank you. And earlier, doing business with India was not easy. There were a lot of challenges, a lot of red tapeism. But over the last 6 years, India has jumped 79 places from 142 to 63 in World Bank's ease of doing business. Then there were multiple taxes in India, which has been replaced by one single tax called Goods and Services Tax, which is the GST, which has made doing business much better. Then we are one of the startup capitals of the world. As mentioned in the video, about 70,000 startups are in India, and there's a lot of support from the Indian government. So a lot of technology companies are incubating in India. Plus rising economic influence in the Asia Pacific region. So these were some of the reasons why one should invest in India. The Indian real estate sector is officially worth about $173 billion, which is about 7% of the Indian GDP. It is nowhere compared to the US markets, but still these are good numbers in terms of Asia. More importantly, the sector provides employment to about 25 million people, out of which 7 million are realtors. So we have 700,000, sorry, not 7 million, around 700,000 realtors operate in this country. And this sector contributes about $14.63 billion in taxes to the Indian government.
Tarun,
yeah.
Question, in terms of cross-border transactions, in terms of people investing in India, where are they coming from right now? Who are the ones that are investing in India right now? What countries are they coming from? What types of properties are they purchasing?
Mostly there are non-resident Indians based out of the Middle East, especially Dubai, UAE. Then from the US, we get a lot of investments from your Bay Area, from Texas, Houston, from New York, New Jersey, and Florida. We get a lot of investment from these places. From Southeast Asia, Singapore, Hong Kong, Thailand, Philippines, from Australia, from China, but China in terms of industrial and warehousing, not really residential or commercial. So basically, we get from all around the world, but if the major countries are the Middle East, the US, and Southeast Asia in terms of 1, 2, 3.
And are these purchases for mostly like second homes, vacation homes? Are they rental properties? Where do you see what do you see people investing in? Why are they investing? What types of properties?
Uh,
For what purpose?
they are both. They are for both purposes. One is for investment because Indian real estate has given fabulous returns over the last 20 years, especially some markets like Delhi NCR market. It has given fabulous returns if you look at a 20-year, 25-year period. Secondly, a sense of security. Maybe these NRIs have something in mind that they'll come back to their home country after their employment contracts are over. Now, at the moment, you can the current US government is changing the laws in terms of H-1B visas. So a lot of Indians will come back to India. So they are buying properties here. Plus, see the rental returns on commercial properties in India, we get about 11-12% return on your investment. So a lot of people park their money here. Plus, they have families, so they try to settle. So there's a lot of money which comes into India from abroad. So they send it back to their families, and their family members buy properties here.
Mhm.
So that's the main purpose.
So part of this is coming from the greater, let's say, Indian diaspora throughout the world. But let's say you're a non-resident Indian, let's say like myself. If we wanted to invest in India, how would the process start? Who do we talk to? Who do we reach out to first? And what do I need to know as a non-resident as to, the implications of buying a property in India? Am I allowed to own real estate? Am I allowed to own land? What are the implications? What should we know as investors who might be non-resident Indians?
See, there are a couple of things there. One is a foreign national. So if you're a foreign national of non-Indian origin, if you are of Indian origin, you can buy property in India. If you are a foreign national of non-Indian origin, uh, and you are resident outside India, you cannot buy property in India. You can only lease it, that also for 5 years without any permission. If you want to lease a property, lease means renting out. If you want to lease a property for more than 5 years, you still need the permission of the Reserve Bank of India, which is the central bank in India. So as a foreign national, you cannot buy property here. Even if there's an Indian who's buying a property and he wants to add your name, even that is not possible. So Indians can buy, non-resident Indians can buy, and person of Indian origin can buy. When I say a person of Indian origin is a citizen of a foreign country, but who held an Indian passport sometime, or his parents or his grandparents were a citizen of India. So they can buy property. A non-resident Indian can buy, but a non-resident non-Indian cannot buy at the moment. But now what is happening is there are a lot of innovation happening. Strata ownership is coming in. So there are companies which are making special purpose vehicles to buy, say, a large warehousing asset, and they are making companies for that. So you as a foreign national can invest in that company, and that company owns the asset. So suppose if 20 of you want to invest together in a large asset, you can buy that through that SPV, but you cannot buy the property in your own name. You cannot register the property in your own name. As far as the process is concerned, we are not as developed as the US markets. It is somehow the same, but the processes are not as developed. So first of all, you need to find a realtor. Again, there are two things there. One is, so I'm talking from a point of view in NRI, because foreign national cannot buy. So NRI, either they can buy on their own, but that's a very cumbersome process. So the best thing is first to find a realtor or a real estate agent. As I said earlier, there are 700,000 agents working in India. But if you come through NAR India, which is our association, it will make a thing much more easier. As I mentioned, we have 50,000 of us in India, and many of our members are already RERA registered. RERA is the authority which I'll talk about a bit later. Uh, Unfortunately, there is no developed MLS service in India, but we are working on the same. It will take another 6-9 months to bring that out. So for the moment, one can either look through a property through an agent, or there are portals like 99 Acres and Magic Bricks and Housing.com where the sellers and agents post their properties. After identifying a property, again, the property tours happen, At the moment, because of the pandemic, those have come down. So we are looking at virtual tours. We are trying to put a post of videos for our clients to look at them. Once you have done the property tours, you shortlist a couple of properties for which the legal due diligence and a title search takes place with the help of a lawyer. Once that legal due diligence process takes place, then we come to the negotiation, the price of the property and the payment terms. All that happens with the help of an agent, but in that both the clients are also involved. So in case there are a couple of agents, they're also involved, the clients are also involved. After the negotiations are finalized, an offer is made. If the offer is accepted, the formalization of contract and agreement to sell, we call it agreement to sell here. So a contract or an agreement to sell is formalized with the help of, again, the lawyer and the agent. Uh, if the terms are acceptable to both the seller and the buyer, the purchaser pays 10% of the cost of the property, either through to an escrow account or through the seller's bank account. The escrow concept is still developing in India. So there are not very many players offering it, but it has come recently. So through an escrow or directly to the seller, you pay that. In case the purchaser wants to take a bank loan, there are housing finance companies, there are banks which finance these real estate assets. The current interest rate is 7%. I know in the US it is, I think, about 2 or 3%. But in India, it has come down from 11% to about 7%. And we are at the lowest in the last 14 years. So that's also acting as a catalyst for the real estate transactions to happen. The loans are approved based on the title and property search and the repayment capacity of the purchaser. So a due diligence is done of the purchaser's repayment capacity as well. Once the bank loan is sanctioned, in case a purchaser is going for a bank loan, then the purchaser buys stamp papers, which is the stamp duty which is paid to the state government. So there are 28 states in India, and the state due and the stamp duty varies from state to state. So the ballpark figure is as low as 3% to as high as 10%. So you buy the stamp papers, there is a nominal registration charges to be paid to the state government. Once you buy the stamp papers, then the preparation of documentation like sale deed and supplementary documents like possession letters, full and final payment receipts are made by the lawyer. Before we go for the registration, we do a final inspection of the property. The buyer and the seller do a final inspection of the property. Unlike the US, where there are agents who certify, that still segment is missing in India. So a buyer relies on his advisors to advise them on that. Once the buyer is satisfied, the documents are submitted to the concerned sub-registrar office or the attorney. I don't know what you call it in the US. We call it the sub-registrar office in India, where the registrations take place. There, the officials, they verify the documents and sale deed, and the registration formalities are completed. Once they confirm that it is completed, the payment of the balance amount is the 90% amount is transferred by the bank to the seller, and whatever was in the escrow account is transferred to the seller. And the seller hands over all the original papers of the property to the bank's lawyer, and the physical possession of the property is handed over to the purchaser. After that, the agent helps the purchaser to change the name in the other. So, as unlike the US, we don't have a central database. So, one is we do the registration, then there's the property tax department where the name of the property owner changes. And sometimes in some properties, in the developer's office also, we change the name. So, then the name change takes place. And then the brokerage is settled between the purchaser and the buyer. So that's the process which I have just spelled out. There could be a couple of more stages involved depending on what kind of property you buy or lease out. But yes, that's the general process what we follow.
Tarun, you mentioned the SPV, or special purpose vehicle. Is that similar to like a REIT, like a real estate investment trust, or are these specific to certain buyers where they set up like an LLC or a certain corporate vehicle where they partner with a resident Indian? What is an SPV in India?
So SPV is like a mini REIT. REIT, what happens is REIT is the fund. So you invest in that fund, and they invest in multiple properties with that fund, and then they give you returns at the end of the year based on the rental incomes earned. SPV is a smaller version of a REIT where it is made only for a specific asset. So, for example, we just closed an asset which was a warehousing property uh, in India. So that SPV was made only for that warehousing asset. So it's a specific purpose for that asset. So suppose it was for about say $5 million. So they invite interest from mostly anyone whom they can. I mean, Indians can invest, NRIs can invest, foreign nationals can invest, because you are not investing in the real estate asset, you are investing in a company. So you invest in that company. If they are able to generate interest to cover the entire cost of the property, they go ahead and buy that property. In case the interest is not that forthcoming, then they take a 5% sort of an earnest money, like an expression of interest. In case they are able to collect the entire fund, they buy that property. Otherwise, that money is refunded back with the prevalent interest rate, which is about 6% in India. So
So
SPV is like a REIT only. Yeah, sorry.
I see. So are there many investors that are investing in a particular SPV, or is it usually a small group of investors that get together? How do people learn about SPVs? How do you learn about that? Find out which SPVs are available and that are open to investors.
So again, SPVs, it depends on the project size. So in case it is a smaller asset, so maybe about 50 of them will invest. If it's a larger asset, then 100, 200. Mostly it is privately placed. It is not really advertised, because what happens is these SPVs, they reach out to realtors like members of NAR India. And we do, at the moment, we are doing webinars for those properties, because physical interaction is limited in India at the moment. And they are privately placed. So we reach out to our HNI, our high net worth individuals, and we give them this alternative, that this is an emerging class of asset in India. This is a very new concept. It's only come to India about a couple of years back. In fact, REIT also, it came to India only in 2018. And at the moment, there's only one REIT, which was by Blackstone and Embassy. And the next one has just raised capital last week. So REITs also is a pretty new concept. So is SPVs.
Okay, and what in your opinion is the let's say that what are the legal and regulatory issues that are trending in India right now? Obviously, you mentioned these SPVs, REITs are new, but on the other hand, non-resident non-Indians don't have the right to purchase property in India. Do you see that changing in the near term? Is there a discussion going on that might lead to the opening up of the real estate market in India?
See, already the FDI has been opened. Real estate, the market opening to individual investors is still not on the horizon. We have represented to the government, but they are taking their own sweet time. As far as challenges are concerned, the main challenge is that our property records are not digitalized. So there is a lot of due diligence required in every asset, because the government is not giving you a certificate that this property is clear. So you rely on agents, you rely on lawyers to give you that title search report. And even then, it is not 100% guarantee, because even if the lawyer goes back 30 years back, there is no guarantee that it will be still clear. So due diligence is a process where the government is working on. One of the state governments is working on this aspect, and that's a pilot project. So by the end of this year, we hope that all the land records in that state will be on the government portal. Anyone can see whether this land is clear or not. If that pilot is a success, then the other state governments are expected to follow. And there's a lot of interest in Indian real estate uh, because of this current pandemic. Also, a lot of companies are trying to shift their manufacturing bases to India from China. Very recently, Apple's Foxconn, which manufactures Apple phones and other gadgets, they have just signed up a large piece of industrial land in South India. So they are moving their operations, and even the Indian government is taking a lot of initiatives under Make in India. They're giving a lot of incentives for people to come and manufacture in India. So there's a lot of interest, yes.
You mentioned due diligence. In terms of, let's say, what are the legal and regulatory issues that are trending in India right now? Obviously, you mentioned these SPVs, REITs are new, but on the other hand, non-resident non-Indians don't have the right to purchase property in India. Do you see that changing in the near term? Is there a discussion going on that might lead to the opening up of the real estate market in India?
See, already the FDI has been opened.
of clear title, I think that's what you're referring to as we call it here. Is there a process of title insurance? Is that something that's offered to sort of minimize the risk?
Unfortunately not. It is just a new concept in India. Title insurance has not really come in. But see, there are two aspects to it. One is a secondary sale, one is a primary sale.
Mm-hmm.
When you are buying from a developer, all that is now covered under Real Estate Regulatory Act 2016. Under that act, all developers have to compulsory register their project. So in case you are buying from a developer, you can be rest assured all the due diligence has been done by the government. So that local state regulatory authority on their website will list all the projects. Suppose you have an interest in XYZ project. If you go to the website, you can go and see whether the project is registered or not. If it is registered, you can easily buy the property without any due diligence from your end. In case it is not registered, I'll request you not to buy that asset because it's illegal to sell. Similarly, if you are transacting with a real estate agent who's not registered under that act, again you may burn your fingers. So try and transact with realtors who are registered under RERA and try and buy in a project which is registered under RERA. You can be rest assured the due diligence has been done by the government.
Okay. We're running out of time. I want to leave some time open for questions and answers, but I wanted to have you discuss another topic that may be relevant to some people who are on this call right now. Referrals, commissions, referral fees. If we have agents in the United States who want to do business in India and refer clients, how does that work in India? What type of agreements do you use? Is it in writing? Tell us a little bit about that process.
Again, it's a fragmented industry here. There are no set norms. We are trying to set the norms here. We are trying to get benchmarks so that people follow that. It all depends. Mostly transactions happen side by side in India. But referral has just started over the last couple or maybe last 3-4 years, where depending on the activity level of that referring agent, the fees is distributed. But again, there is no law or there is no rules by it. So mostly it is one-to-one negotiation which happens. But the standard sort of is about 70-30, wherein in case someone is referring a client to you, normally you share 25, 30, 35% with that agent, depending on your personal negotiations. In case the other agent has been equally active in transacting, one is you just refer a client with the contact details and the requirement. One is you actively engage. In case of a very active engagement, agent even shares 50-50. But again, there is no set rules. So it's all one-to-one negotiations.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I know we have a lot of participants on this call right now. I'd like to open it up to questions and answers. If anybody has a question, I would say either unmute yourself and ask the question, or maybe the best way would be to raise your hand if we have that. Gary, do we have that option here?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
May I? Go ahead.
Hi, just to introduce myself, my name is Karan Garibal. I'm a licensed realtor in Westchester County. My background, as you can see, I'm Indian. I was in India till I was 24. I did my CA there, Sri Ram College of Commerce and everything. Tarun and I probably have a similar background. And for the last 20 to 30 years, I've been in America. I did my CPA here, CFA, whatever, finance background, but got into real estate. And I have so many observations in terms of, every Indian actually becomes an expert in real estate just by virtue of their exposure. Everyone's got some family who has some investment. And some people go beyond the home. Historically, India was all 100% cash transactions. When the mortgage market opened up, and especially the foreign multinationals came and gave good income to Indians, they were able to get loans and get mortgages, and the real estate market exploded in value. We're talking about 10, 20% a year. they were doing 10, 20 times. Like in 20 years, you could have value of 100 times of the original value. That growth is not there anymore. I think today the valuation of Indian real estate has come to reflect the income opportunities. They're good yields. They're like, 10, we're talking about commercial 10, 12% yields. But when you translate back into dollars, there's a devaluation. The Indian rupee devalues to the dollar every year. The MLS is not there. And one of the reasons it's not there is many Indian transactions get transacted not in all, as they call, white and black. There is some component of the transaction that is, let's say, undocumented or unrecorded income. You may sell something for $500,000 and you may show that it's only sold for $300,000, and 200 would be just literally cash in suitcases. It used to be very common, less so now because the government's cracking down on that. But as a result of that, you can't have an MLS showing a transaction. What are you going to show? 500? That's not true. You're going to show 300. Nobody will want to sell it at that because they know that they can get more. So that's one big challenge I'm sure Tarun is facing and trying to deal with. The fact that there's no title insurance makes it really scary. Not only so, the title companies, they don't want legal challenges. They want a clean transaction. But if you have a legal challenge, you may end up in court. And the courts are so backlogged. They're trying their best to really improve things, but they're so backlogged and such a challenge. Even if you have a tenant, let's say you have an investment property, you get a tenant in there, that guy can take possession of your property. It's so difficult to get him out that he will, you'll be stuck in court for 20 years. These are some of the reasons I'm pointing out that I chose not to invest in India. Things are changing and they're getting better. But when it came to invest in real estate, I chose to do it here primarily because of the infrastructure and the ease of transactions. And now you put on top of that transfer taxes. Tarun mentioned 3 to 10%. If a husband wants to transfer property in the wife's name, in Delhi, is it around 8%, Tarun? You're going to pay 8% of the value of the property. And a home, like a flat in South Delhi Defense Colony, could be like $1 million. The prices had gone really crazy. So now you're going to pay $80,000 to transfer between family or to sell it. And that's a huge burden in terms of repeated transactions. Here you have flippers. They buy something, fix it up. Transfer tax is like 0.4%. It's easy to deal with that, but
Tarun,
that is a big barrier.
Tarun, those are some very good points. Tarun, can you address some of those issues? I know you already have, but maybe you can address some of those issues.
Yeah.
They might relate to what
absolutely.
you're doing as president-elect of NAR.
Absolutely. So currently, even I'm from Shriram College of Commerce. So glad to meet you on this platform. I don't know which batch you are. I'm 89. You may be slightly senior or junior.
79.
So you are 10 years senior to me. So glad to meet you on this platform. What you are saying is correct, but there's a timeline. Maybe this was correct 5-6 years down the line. I'll take your points one by one. Some of them still hold very good. In terms of white and black, things have really changed in the last 5 years because the government has increased the circle rate. Circle rate is the guidance value. Earlier, in fact, in Delhi, since you quoted, there are certain areas where the market price is lower than the guidance value. Just for the benefit of all other viewers, guidance value is a price that less than that you cannot register a property. So if in case the guidance value is $1 million, so what Karan was referring to was that the transaction happens at $2 million. $1 million is paid in cash unaccounted, and $1 million the registration happens. Over the last 5 years, the governments have increased the guidance value to nearly the market price, which is close to $2 million in that example. In certain areas, the guidance value has become $2 million and the market value has come down to $1.8 million. So in fact, now we are trying to tell, and in case you register the property at less than the guidance value, there are heavy penalties. So at the moment, we are representing to the government to reduce the guidance values because the transactions, the market price is not as good as the guidance value. In terms of title insurance, I've already clarified it is still a developing sector because the land records are not digitalized. So the companies are not willing to put they're not willing to bear that risk. The government is working on it. I think give it 2-3 years, we'll see a lot of companies coming to title insurance. Uh, in terms of transfer to your blood relations, now rules have changed, sir. Haryana, which is adjoining Delhi, they have started this process that in case you are willing to, if you want to transfer the property from in blood relations to your wife, to your parents, to your brothers, sisters, you only pay around $100 as fees. That is in Haryana. It's again a test case. Depending on that, it is not misused. The other states will start copying that. So things are changing. As I mentioned earlier, we are still a developing economy. The previous governments did not pay attention to all these things. That is where bodies like CREDAI and NAREDCO, which are the developer body, and NAR India, we are pitching to the government. We are telling them a lot of shortcomings, and they are working on it. And we are nowhere, comparable to the US real estate provisions and systems. There's a long way to that. Karan, have I answered all your question or something is left? Sorry, there was. In case I've left something, you can please.
No, you've addressed some of them. Talking about the SPV, which is your mini REIT or whatever, I think that the foreigners who perhaps see that as an opportunity to invest in Indian real estate might be enticed. But I have a sense that those fractional interests are going to be very illiquid. There's no secondary market if someone wants to exit from that or to sell it to somebody else. So that would be a huge concern. With the REITs that you have here, they're traded openly, have a continuous valuation. There is a due diligence on their management, so that I think that is another, the ethics is a big challenge also in India in terms of making sure that the operators and developers are aware of and cognizant of the interests of their investors. But not having that safety net of being able to exit cleanly and easily would be a huge concern, I think, for foreign investors. And then, of course, the translation, you put in $1 million and at the end you have 1.3 million. But 3 years later, that may translate back to 1.02 million. That concern is also there.
Karan mentioned the liquidity of SPVs, and perhaps there's a cross-border transactions going the other way. And there are Indians coming into the United States and investing here. Do you work with Indian investors who are investing in the United States? What do you see that trend? How do you see that trend going?
Tony, can I answer Karan's question first, or should I answer this one?
Sure.
Okay, so Karan, see, there are multiple companies with strata ownership as well. It's your choice whom to work with. There are now venture capitalist funds who are backing these strata companies like SAFE Partners and Tiger Global and the other funds they are investing. So the processes are all above board. In terms of due diligence, they hire companies like JLL, Johnson LaSalle, or CBRE, or the top law companies in the country to look at the due diligence process. Some of these strata companies give you, they are not traded on a daily basis like a REIT, but they open a window twice a year for a month where you can sell that property back to them, and because they normally have a waiting list of investors to buy. Since once they get enough investors to cover that cost, then sometimes there is a waiting list. But that all depends on the economy and the market conditions. So there are opportunities available to exit as well. Even realtors help them exit such properties. So yes, but it's a developing thing. You can invest in REITs as well. Already I said there's a Embassy Blackstone REIT. One more has just opened last week. And there are multiple in the pipeline. So in case you want to test the waters, you can start with the REITs, and once you are confident, you can come to strata ownership. In terms of exchange rate, there's nothing we can do. Or exchange rate is a global phenomenon. It all depends on the economies. Today we are trading at about 76, 77 rupees to a dollar. we don't really know how will it go further. So anyone betting on the exchange rate, I don't know how I can address that, but that is beyond our control. So if you take that apart, otherwise things are pretty fine. But yes, over the last 25 years, if you see, the real estate appreciation has given far better returns than the exchange rate. Those who have entered the Indian real estate market in 2012-13 have suffered the brunt of the exchange rate depreciation. Otherwise, those who entered earlier, even as early as 2006-7, they have made decent money. But yes, there are different examples, and you can prove me wrong and all that. But just sort of addressing that. And Tony, sorry, coming back to your question, a lot of money invested outside. In fact, in Dubai, Indians are the highest investors after the Emirati, the local population. Indians and Pakistanis are the highest, they make the highest investments in Dubai. In the US, I've been told, I don't have access to that data, about close to $8 billion of real estate is bought by Indians in the US. Yes, we work with some realtors in the US where our clients are willing to buy looking to buy a property in the US. What happens is a lot of Indian kids do their undergrad and postgrad in the US. Close to 200,000 Indian students are undergrad students in the US. So their parents sometimes invest. So yes, a lot of, I can only talk about my personal experiences. We have done certain transactions in New York as well, in the Manhattan area. But
So
that's still unorganized sector.
My apologies. I have someone who's raised their hand. Teresa, would you like to please ask your question? Unmute yourself.
Yeah, yes. My name is Teresa Belmore. I specialize in commercial real estate in the U.S. and abroad. In Tehran, I want to just thank you. This has been very informative. So I have a quick question, and then I want a clarification. You said the straight ownership that a company can go ahead and purchase property and other individuals can invest in that company in order to purchase property. Is that similar to a consortium? And then the next clarification I wanted to know, you do negotiations first and do your due diligence, then you present a formal offer, and then you finalize the deal. I just want to know if that's correct.
Coming to your second question first the due diligence happens, then the negotiation. Because the property is not clear, there's no point going for a negotiation. The due diligence, negotiation, offer, acceptance, contract, and registration.
Okay.
But see, that also depends. There are certain cases where people may arrive at a price and the seller then shares the documents of the property. But normally we don't try and exchange any money, any fund of funds till the due diligence process is complete in terms of title search. And coming back to your first question, I don't understand consortium. What does that mean? Because we don't have that concept here. It's a private limited company in which you buy shares and debentures. So I don't know whether in the US it's called a consortium or not. I'm not sure, or in Canada what it's called. But you are shareholders in that company, and that company owns that asset. So you are the owner of the asset limited to the amount of shareholding you have in that company. For example, if it's an asset for $1 million and there are two of us in that company, so we own half of the company and half of the asset. So it all depends on the number of the amount of shares you have in that company.
And thank you,
I hope I've answered your question.
Yeah. We have time, I think, just for one more quick question. Anthony Domatotti, I think you have one question that you'd like to ask. It's about 10:50 right now here in New York. We've got only a few minutes before we have to close so that we could start our Global Business Council meeting. But Anthony, do you have a question for Tarun?
Yes, hi, good morning. My name is Anthony Domatotti. I'm of the Indian origin, born to Indian parents. I'm from the South. And one of the questions I have is, how have you as an association adapted to COVID-19 and the crisis thereof? How has the market shifted? How have you pivoted? What kind of maneuvers are in place now to protect yourself and your interests as realtors?
Thank you, Anthony. As an association, see, for the first couple of months, the Indian economy was shut down by the current government. From 25th of March till about 8th of June, the entire country was shut down. During that period, the NAR India looked at organizing educational sessions about what one can do post-COVID for its members. We have done close to 100 such sessions for our members, and a lot of training happened as to how you can operate post-COVID. After COVID, we were expecting that the markets will take some time to return. There will be a lot of pessimism in the market because jobs were being lost, capacities were being reduced. But contrary to our expectations, the markets have come back very, very strongly. In fact, the site visits have come back to the pre-COVID levels, with a silver lining that now most people who are coming in are very, very serious buyers. Earlier, if out of 100 people, 20, 25 were serious, the others were just thinking about it. Now, today, out of 100 people coming to the site, 75 are serious because they're taking that risk. They're coming in a COVID period to look at a site. Earlier, we were entertaining walk-ins. Now, it is strictly through appointment, with a limited number of people coming in. All precautions are taken in terms of sanitizers and the required distances. And wherever the property visits happen, after that, the entire thing is sanitized. In the resale market, still some sellers are not comfortable with site visits, so those are being postponed. But in the developer community, the site visits are happening on a normal basis with all precautions. I hope I've answered your question.
Okay, thank you. I do want to close here because we have our meeting starting in a few minutes. Thank you, Tarun Bhatia, for being with us. I hope that we can connect again and maybe do some networking through Zoom at least. I think we have many people here that joined us that would be very interested in continuing this conversation. So thank you very much. Kathleen, do you want to include your email address in the chat box there? If anyone is interested in more information, we can provide it to you. We will have this recording on our website, as well as Tarun's video and PowerPoint presentation. They will be there for you, but Kathleen just put her email in the chat box. So if you have any questions, just please email her and she can get that information to you. And thank you very much to everyone for joining us. And I'd also like to thank our president, Gail Fatizzi, president of the Hudson Gateway Association of Realtors, who joined us today. And thank you again, Tarun, for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Tony. And before I go, first of all, a big thanks to all of you for joining in. And I'll be sharing a report also, a research report, what we have done very, very recently. I'll request you to share it with your members so that you'll get some idea about the macro real estate market. And thank you for having me here. Any questions, please address, and we'll try and answer to the best of our ability. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
One last thing. We will be doing another global chat featuring Nigeria in a couple of months. So there'll be more information out on that soon.
So if our Global Business Council members can stay on, we're sticking with the same Zoom platform. So we'll